Hi everyone, this is Cristy with Aerybeth Sewing, and I'm going to show you how to make this cute tote bag today, and you can make it in all different sizes. This one is based upon a piece of computer paper, 8.5 by 11, and so you choose your size to begin with. You make my own pattern by taping pieces of paper together, but I will give you the dimensions of this bag and teach you how to make this today. So this one, let's look at the different pieces. So we have a top piece, and we have a bottom piece, and we have a tab, and we have two straps, and we have two pieces of lining fabric. The lining fabric, the lining pieces are the same size as the total outside piece. So we need two tops, two bottoms, two tab pieces, two lining pieces, and two strap pieces. And then we'll also need thread to match, which I used red. You see that top stitch. And you will also need a magnetic snap. And don't forget that your thread needs to be all-purpose thread. Okay, let's get started. Alright, so let's talk about this tote. Okay, this is the tote. And I said I used a piece of paper, computer paper. It is 8.5 by 11. You see, I've folded it a lot. So this top piece is this piece right here, and I folded it and I cut out two of those. You know, so it's a little bit wider, but when you sew it together, that's how big it is. So 8.5 by 7. So I'm using the whole width of this and measured down 7 inches, and I folded it and I cut two of those out. Okay, the bottom piece is 8.5 by 4.5, and I folded this part up, laid that down on the fabric. With it folded over, I cut out two pieces. Okay. Now the strap is going to be, if you measure it, okay, so this one, I think I cut it a little bit shorter when I decided. So it tucks in about 1 inch, and so you kind of just wrap it around. I'm just going to see what I ended up with. So this one is about probably 23 inches, so it would be 23 inches. I said 5 by 30 on this piece right here, but it would be 5 by about 24 inches. Okay, and you see how wide it is, but once you fold it, it will be this size. Now if you wanted a much wider strap, you could take it and make it 7 inches and fold in the sides just barely. And see, this is another tote that I had made, and this is straps that I had made, and see, they're a lot wider than this one. Okay, so you can make them wider, but if you want them really wide, you would probably need to cut them about 7 inches wide. And of course, this piece of paper is not 30 or 23 inches or 24 inches. You would need to fold it the width of your fabric and get that. Okay, so I'll show you a little bit about those. But first, what you'll need is you'll need two top pieces. Okay, so I'm just going to use this as an example. So here's this piece of fabric, and it's folded selvage to selvage like you would have it on a bolt of fabric from the store. And I always open it up and only fold it over as much as I need. No sense in wasting your fabric. And I would put my top piece on, and you can pull it over more and not waste any of your fabric. Okay, I cut out two of those, and then if you want to, you can go ahead and cut these out and have the top and bottom. But I do one, cut it out, pull that under. Here's the bottom piece. Put that on after I cut the top piece out. Okay, and then you're going to also need two tab pieces. Now for this little tab right here, see, that's it right there. And if you want a longer tab, you can have it, but this is 2 3/4 by 4.5. But you could make this 3 inches wide if you wanted it just a little bit wider, because this is a little skinny tab, but it's a skinny bag. But you can decide what kind of tab you want. So you'll need to cut 2 of those. 2 of those, 2 top pieces, 2 bottom pieces, 2 tab pieces. I'm going to get my acrylic ruler. And this is a wide angle lens, so it looks a little curved, but it is straight. So here is my acrylic ruler. And if you look right here, okay, there's 1 inch, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if I put my 5 inches right on that top edge, if it's straight, I can mark right here. And you see that blue line? There's your 5 inches. I promise you, the video looks kind of curved, but it's 5 inches. Okay? Then you take it and you move it down. And you take your 5 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you put it right on that line that you just made. And you draw another line. And you should have 2 sets now. You'll have this strap and this strap, and you can cut those. Say that your top edge is not, okay, let's just say this little top edge is not straight and actually is curved. If you put the edge of acrylic ruler where it's straight right on those selvages, okay, get that straight, and you can move it down just a little bit. And you can see if there's little weird parts sticking out, and this one's not exactly straight, so you could make yourself a straight edge at the very top or the bottom, and you can move that, and you'll see where you can cut off and then measure down from this line. So I wouldn't even cut it off yet. I would take and put it on my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because I want that to be 5. You put it on that line that you drew, draw a straight edge, and then measure down from that, and then you have your 2 straps. Now, the width of this fabric, if you look at it, okay, I'm gonna pull it over here. Over here, it's about 22.5, so that gives you 40 inches of strap. So if you only wanted a 20-inch strap, you could cut it in half, and you'll have the top piece and the bottom piece as your 2 straps. But if you want a 30-inch strap, you're gonna have to cut out both of these, and then cut it down to 30. If that makes sense. So that's how you do your 2 straps. So go ahead and cut those out. Okay, this is just a sample piece. Alright, so I'm going to show you what I've done. Now, I did not talk about the lining yet. You're going to need lining fabric, but we're not going to even, you can go ahead and cut it out the size of the piece of paper since we're using 8.5 by 11, but when we sew the pieces together, it will probably be a little bit less than 8.5 by 11 because we're sewing it together. So our tab piece, so these are a little bit smaller. I was running out of fabric. So I have our 2 tab pieces, and then you're going to cut out interfacing. Let me find my other little piece of interfacing. You probably flew away. So I'm going to have to find my other piece in a minute. Okay, so I have 2 bottom pieces, 2 tab pieces, and 2 top pieces, and 2 strap pieces. Alright, now I'm going to cut interfacing for the straps, and I want to make it a little bit smaller than the straps so it won't hang off. So like this one. Oh, it was stuck to it, so that's good. Alright, so here is our interfacing for our little tabs. So here's our little straps, and I'm going to put there's a bumpy side and a smooth side. You can see the bumps, but you put it face down and you make sure it is not hanging off at all. If it is hanging off at all, then you take your scissors and trim it down just a little bit. I don't want it to be glued onto my ironing table. This is a little wool ironing board So put that down here, and this one's good. Just need to center it a little bit more. All right, now if you're afraid that you're going to iron those and it's going to crinkle up, you can flip it over. Move all the other interfacing pieces away, and you can iron this. You can steam it a little if you want it. Here, steam. And then it's ironed on the back. If it ever starts coming up, you can just flip it over and iron it again. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and cut the interfacing for all these and get them on, and then I'll show you what we're going to do next, okay? Alright, I've got the interfacing on the inside, okay? And now what I've done is I've taken this and I've folded it in half. Now this is to make that smaller strap on the bag, on the interfacing the tent. Okay, so this strap right here. Alright, so I've folded it in half. Now if you wanted to make the wider strap, you would only fold it over just a little bit on each side and then meet it back up, and it will be wider. Okay, but we're folding it in half for this one. And then I'm going to open it back up and I'm going to fold it to the center. Now I was running out of interfacing on this one, so I only had to put it, but this is flannel, so it's okay, so I didn't get it as close to the edge as I usually do. So I'm going to fold it to the center crease that I just made. I'm going to do that all the way down. And then I'm going to fold the second one to that middle crease. And iron it all the way down. And they can touch. You can have a little bit of white showing. It's okay. Just keep folding that. Now once you've done that, I'm going to take it and I'm going to fold it in half again. Now those are all edges that are going to be hidden. Now I want to see a tiny bit of that back. This is kind of like extra wide double fold bias tape. You see a little bit of the back. That way you know for sure when you sew on top of it, you get the back. So I'm going to fold that in half, seeing a tiny bit of that back edge. And then you can adjust if when you're ironing, you can see a little bit more when you're sewing. You can pull it to the edge more. Now, when you're sewing it, you're going to get really close to that edge. And some people sew on two sides, some people sew on one side. It is your preference. So you can mark it with a straight edge in the middle and find the center. And then you can put a decorative stitch in the middle. So I'm going to pin close to this edge with the needles in the up position, or you can do up position or sideways. You don't want to pin it upside down like this way. Like this way. You want the head to be on the bottom, because as you're sewing you want to be able to pull those out without hurting your finger pulling it toward the needle. Okay, now I've done both my straps. Now I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and sew really close to that edge. Alright, now I'm back over my sewing machine, and I'm going to be on a straight stitch of a 1 and a 3 length. And this, on my machine, is the needle in the center. I'm going to put this down, take my pin out, have your magnetic pin cushion thing nearby. I'm going to tuck my threads between the little presser foot to the back and put my needle down, and I'm going to back stitch. See if I can get a better view for you. Alright, so I'm going to get real close to that edge, and I'm just going to hold it here, and then I'm putting my hand kind of underneath to hold it. I'm going to go really close to that edge. Try to be consistent with how close you are. The further away, it'll be a floppy side. You don't want it to be a floppy side. So get real close to that edge. Go as slow as you need to go. Sometimes I find that going even a little bit faster actually helps it keep more consistent. I'm using my hand just to guide it. If it starts getting poofy, just kind of pull it straight. Keep it taut right there. Even if you need to take out a pin and kind of pull it more straight. But don't pull against your sewing machine. Pull it taut, but then kind of let your machine pull it in. And don't hinder it from pulling it in. And then make sure you keep looking under and make sure you have the bottom. Now mine's getting a little poofy, so I'm going to take out 2 or 3 of the pins and kind of just straighten it up. Sew all the way off. Needle up, pressure fit up. I'm going to take it and cut it off. I'm going to cut her on the side, and then that side is done. Now you can do the other side if you want to, but this one I'm just going to do one side. Alright, now I'm going to do the other one. Press the foot down, needle down, forward, back stitch. Fleece kind of moves sometimes, so if you want to pin it some more, did want to go around it and go to the other side, you can pick it up, pivot, and go around like this. And then when you get to the edge, you can pick it up and pivot it and go back down the other edge. I did that on the other small tote, but this one I'm not going to. So I'm going to take it, cut it off, and now both straps are done. So I'm going to go back and iron those really good flat. Alright, so here's my straps. I'm just going to iron those really good. Alright, so those are ready to be set aside. Alright, it's now time to work on the tab. So I have my tab pieces right here. Okay, so let's talk about those. Here are my tab pieces, and here are my magnetic snaps. I have this little cool case that I got on Amazon. They have like silver and brushed nickel, brushed gold, and regular gold. And on this one, let's see, what did I use? This little tote, I used a gold. So I'm going to use I'm going to use a brushed nickel on this one. So I'm going to get out a little one here, okay, and then the back piece, and they start sticking together. And then I need 2 of these little earring back things right there. Alright, now I'm only going to put 1 piece on this to start with. Okay. And I'm going to use the little one. Now, I'm going to get in my little sewing gauge ruler, and I'm going to take my tab piece, and I'm going to fold it in half, and you can iron it, or you can fold it either way. So you can fold it that way or the other way. You can iron it or you can finger press it. Either way. I've got my iron handy, so I'm just going to iron it. So that finds the center for me. You see the little crease? Now, I'm going to do it on, you could do it on either side, but if it's a very busy pattern, sometimes it's easier to do it on the side that's white. And I'm going to go up about 1.5 inches to 1.25 inches. And since this is a smaller little purse, I'm going to do 1.25 inches. So the 1.25 inches is the big line right before the 1.5 inches. And on that crease, these are heat erase pins. Right on that little crease, 1.25 inches, I'm going to make a little blue dot. You'll see that blue dot? And then I'm going to take the smaller of the pieces and I'm going to straddle that little blue mark and I'm going to press down. Sometimes it's easier on a table. But I'm going to press down and that should give you some 2 indentions on either side. And I'm going to mark those 2 indentions. It's like a TIE fighter from Star Wars. Alright, so I'm going to bend that and make sure it's not like diagonal, like way off to the side. I'll make sure that those 2 little lines are centered. Okay. And then I'm going to get my scissors and I'm going to cut the smallest little baby bite. I mean tiny. I'd rather you have to do it again than make big holes. Okay. So once I make those little bitty baby holes, you can come and see there's little holes there. So I'm going to take this little bitty piece and find those holes and push them through. You see that? And then I'm going to put the little earring back on. And then I'm going to push one side in with my thumb, if you can do it. And then I'm going to use the table as leverage and push that down. Okay. And then you have your little magnetic snap in there. And there's the back. And now I'm going to take this piece, right sides together. You should not see any pretty sides. And then we're going to sew. I'm going to just draw on this. You don't do this, but I mean it'll go out with. You're going to sew a U shape, a square U shape. Okay? And so you're going to start here, and we're going to sew down, pivot, go across, pivot, go up here, back stitch, and sew off. So we're always back stitch to start with. Go down, across here. So you don't sew off the bottom, just pivot and go across. If you want to make yourself sewing lines, you can. I like to use it, presser fit, and sew around. Alright, so I'm going to take that. I'm going to get my pins. I'm going to put my, you can put them sideways, you can put them up and down. It's alright. If I put them sideways, I can actually sew over them. Some people don't like to do that, but that's okay. And when you make tote bags, there are 100 different ways to make a tote bag. This is just a cute one that I just designed because I couldn't find one that I liked. Alright, so I'm going to go to my sewing machine and back stitch and sew around. And then we're going to clip our corners and turn it right side out and top stitch. Okay, back to the sewing machine and make sure my threads are between his little feet to the back. I'm going to put my presser foot right down on the little edge. I have the tiniest bit of fabric peeking out, but barely. There's a 5/8 inch mark on my machine. Some machines have it, sometimes they don't. But this is more just, say not a 1/2 inch, but getting close. Alright, so I'm going to roll it in, or you can do the needle in. I'm going to back stitch back to the top because I don't want to leave any floppy edges at the top. And then I'm going to go all the way down. And I can sew over those pins, or you can take them out, smooth it out if you want to. When I get to the bottom, I don't want to sew off. I want to be in my fabric with the needle down. So if your needle's up, roll it down, pick up your presser foot and turn it. And if you have too much fabric showing, you can pick it up, put it back stitch, or go forward, or roll your needle up and back down, or you can go back stitch. Okay, so we're going to do, turn it, go to the edge here, pick it up, pivot, turn, very end. I'm going to back stitch a couple of times and then sew all the way off. Needle up, pressure fit up. Don't cut your threads too short because you'll end up having to rethread. And just a little tip, always have your bobbin in counterclockwise. You can mess up your machine. Alright, so we've sewn all the way around this, so we're going to go back over to the ironing table. Alright, I'm going to take the pins out that I still have. Now this is the reason that I sew, put it 1.5 or 1.25 up, because when you sew around it, then you don't have to worry about your presser foot getting close to your magnetic snap. So I'm going to cut off any threads I have. And then I'm going to trim off the little corners. And if there's a lot of bulky seams, you can kind of cut those off as well. But this helps you poke out the corners when you're done. And you see these blue marks I made? So you can actually iron over those. I love those pins. And then you can take it, and if you have a curved one, you could actually make a curved one. Just draw the lines or use a bowl or something to make your curved lines, and you can make a curved one. And so we're just going to roll it up, and we're going to push this through. There's also turning devices, but something this small and little, I can get in there and do that. Alright, now you got all these little edges. I have I call it a pokey stick. It comes in a stuffing of the polyfill, but you can also get it chopstick from the store that sells sushi. And I just poke those corners out. If you're having to poke through, that means you didn't sew it well enough anyway, so you need to turn it right side out and fix that. Alright, isn't that cute? Now, it's all poofy, and you have your magnetic snap here. So I'm going to iron the sides. Make sure those seams are even on the side, not twisted. Now I'm going to turn it over and do the same thing. I'm ironing over just a little bit, but don't do that if you have thin fabric because you'll be seeing an outline. Alright, there it is. Now I'm going to go back to the sewing machine and I'm going to top stitch really close to the edge all the way around that. Alright, so I'm going to put this underneath the sewing machine, put my needle down, go forward, back stitch, and then I'm going to top stitch all the way around. Just close to the edge, don't get too close. Alright, we'll get to the bottom corner, make sure your needle is in. Pick it up, pivot. Now, if for some reason it won't go forward, you can, because it's really thick in the corner, you can, yeah, it's kind of stuck. So I'm going to make my needle go up and pull it forward just a little bit. Pick it up, pivot. Now you don't have to sew the top of this shut, or you could, and just go across. If it's really fuzzy, you can sew across evenly, and then we can trim it off. So I'm going to cut off those threads, tuck it back under to the back. And then I've got this cute little strap tab. Now we're going to set that aside with the straps. Do our next part. Okay, here's our next two pieces. Now, in the meantime, you have your other part of your magnetic snap. And you want to make sure you want to make sure that you don't lose these two. So put this somewhere safe until you need it for the bag part. Alright, so we have our top piece and our bottom piece. Now I did not cut interfacing for this. Now in another class, Miss Carmen's class, here I'm going to raise this up a little bit so you can see this. She had a plain piece of material and then she had sequin material. I think she's coming back in the morning. So I have this cute little sequin fabric. Okay, now you have to be careful with sequins. They actually have glue on them. So when you use your needle, it's going to get kind of gunky and it'll stop. Sometimes it stops sewing or you see thread sticking to it. So if you have some rubbing alcohol nearby, you can rub the needle and get the glue stuff off of it. But she what we did is we had to cover this part with interfacing and this part with interfacing because we couldn't iron. We don't want to iron the sequins. So we put the interfacing on the back of the plain fabric and then cut a piece of this to cover the top piece and then sewed it together. But for this just regular tote bag, we're going to sew these two pieces together and these two pieces together, and then we'll cut a piece of interfacing to match. All right, this whole piece. So we're going to turn this sideways. That's the bottom, that's the top, and I'm going to turn this right sides together. So I'm going to put this side together with this. If you ever get confused, just pin it where you think it should be and then open it back up and make sure. So here's where we would be pinning it, and then we're going to sew it on so it should look like that. So just test it out in your mind first. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to draw a sewing line. You do not have to draw a sewing line. This is about 1 to 5/8 in, and you can measure it as well. So if you, not an inch, I'm sorry, 1/2 inch. So there's your 1/2 inch. Okay, so I'm going to mark 1/2 inch in. You see that blue line? And then I'm going to put some pins here. This is flannel, so it kind of sticks well together. Sometimes it moves. If you find yours moving, just pin it a little more. But everything does stick to it. Alright, so there's my other piece. Put it here. You can test it out, 1/2 inch. Just make sure it's even. You could do 1/4 inch too if you wanted a smaller seam. Alright, so now I'm going to take it back over to the sewing machine and sew those two seams. Always sew with the fabric on the outside of the machine, so the majority of all this is on the outside of the machine. So I'm going to put this under here on that blue line. I'm going to put my needle down. You go forward if you need to, back stitch, make sure you back stitch to the beginning. You don't have to back stitch off your fabric. Then I'm just going to go across those pins on that blue line. Kind of poofy, you just take it out and smooth it out. Get to the end, back stitch, sew off, needle up, press your foot up, cut off your thread, tuck them back in. Then I'm going to take all my pins out. Do the same for this one. Ready for my next one. Take out all the pins and back over to the table. Alright, we've got our these sewn up. I cut off any extra thread. Now I'm going to take this piece, and this is our seam, right? So I'm going to fold this down, but I'm going to push this up toward the top. Now, again, with Miss Carmen's that has a sequin up here, I didn't want to top stitch on top of the sequins, and we're going to push the seam toward the bottom and top stitch down here. What you're doing is, whichever way you push the seam is where you top stitch, because the seam is pushed up, and that will keep the seam nice and smooth against the fabric and not stick out. And then when you wash it, you won't have any problem. So I'm going to make that really nice and flat. And then I'm also going to take it, turn it over here, and kind of give this a pull and make sure it's all pulled and it's not like tucked under. So there's that one. And also your blue lines that we drew, if you use that, they disappear. Cut off any threads, fold that back over. Now when I cut this one's sticking out just a little bit at the bottom. I'm just going to trim it up, make it the same size. Okay. Alright, so now I'm going to go over to the sewing machine and top stitch that. Alright, here we go. I'm going to stitch close to the edge, not right on top of it. And just give this a cute little red top stitch. Down, back stitch. I just do one on this. And then keep it consistent. Make sure it's not folding up on you. To the end, back stitch just once, needle up, press your foot up, pull it out, put out your thread. There's another thread over here where we started. I just go ahead and sometimes cut that off over here, but you can wait till you get back to the table. So same thing here. Put the needle down, forward, back stitch. Get to the end, back stitch, and sew off. Needle up, press your foot up, cut it off, tuck it under. You have your other thread over here. Cut that off. Alright, now at this point in time is when I take this and cut the interfacing to match this whole piece. Okay? Here is a package of interfacing. This is just a thin, featherweight, lightweight. It makes good especially for just light bags if you don't want something heavy or stiff. They also have medium weight. Those are on bolts of fabric. In the back of Hobby Lobby, Joann's, you can ask people for help if you need help, but it doesn't come in a package. It will come on a bolt like a fabric. And you just unroll this, and then you can fold it over only as much as you need it and cut out what you want. So that's the sheer weight. There's also fusible fleece for a more like soft bag, but it gives it structure. Alright, so here's our piece that we've sewn together and we've top stitched. And here is our other piece. Over here to the side. And again, it's flannel, so it picks up like everything. And then you cut your pieces. And you don't want it to hang off any edge. And it doesn't have to be perfect, this. So I'm just going to cut it a little bit shorter. Alright, that one's on there pretty good. Now this one. It's hanging off the bottom and the side, so I'm going to cut that one a little bit more. I just don't want it to be on my iron or my ironing board. I'd rather be a little bit. Okay. Now I'm going to flip these over, and as long as the white isn't showing underneath, I can go ahead and iron these. And you can give it a little steam if you want to. You can give it a good go. It's not gonna hurt it because you've got all this flannel on top. And then now I can give it and see now that where it's folded up, that seam is not gonna go anywhere. Okay, I'm gonna flip this over. You always want to make sure that bumpy side is going toward your fabric so it won't glue onto your ironing board. Or your iron. I steam it a few times. Down. Once I do this, now I can cut out the lining to match this perfectly instead of wasting fabric. I mean, you can cut it out before and just cut an inch or so off, but now I can cut it exactly to this size. Okay, now that's pretty good. It's kind of poofy over here, so I'm going to just gently, quickly go over it. Now I have the two pieces. Look at that. I have my tab, and then I have my straps. Now I need my lining pieces. So I ran out of the fabric that I wanted to use. I used it on the other tote bag. I used a little puppy print inside. I would love to use this. These are this little piece, but I've ran out of those pieces. So I'm using So these are kind of like scrap busters when you're making different things. You find things that will fit and make some cute little things. Alright, so I have this black fabric. And it's just a little scrap. I thought this would be perfect for the lining because it doesn't have to be thick. Now, if you wanted to line it with interfacing, you can, but I'm not going to use interfacing on this one. I think it would be perfect. Now I'm pushing it over in the middle. I don't usually put it in the middle, but it's gonna it's close to the edge right here. So I'm gonna put it right here and cut this out. I'm going to get really close to my fabric, but I don't want to cut my fabric. Just like you don't want to with a pattern piece. Sometimes I get the big pieces out of the way, and then I can go back and get closer to the edges. And also you can pin it down if you want to. If it starts moving on you, pin it down. Alright, now we're ready to put our bag together. Get everything out of the way. Alright, so this is what we're going to do. Here's our first piece and this piece. And we're going to do right sides together. Now the most important part to put together are these seams. Okay, let's see if I can get back down here again and show you. Okay, so here's this seam right here. And you want to make sure you put those right on top of each other, matching that up, so it won't be like this one further down here. So we're going to do that first, and I'm going to pin right in that point. Now I'm going to flip it over and get those seams perfectly together. Okay, and then pin that. Alright, then we're going to work all the way around, pinning it as we go. So I'm going to pin here, 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 in the middle down here. Just kind of pin them out of the way a little bit. Alright, now we're going to sew this again. We're going to sew this like we did the tab. We're going to sew this in a U shape. We're going to start at the top and back stitch and go down in the corner, pivot, needle in, all the way back to the top and back stitch. So it will be that U shape, square U shape again. Okay, so you're going to back stitch, go down, pivot, don't saw off your fabric, pivot, needle in, up, and back stitch. Alright, so here we go. I'm going to put my fabric, I didn't draw any lines, but I'm going to put my presser foot right on the edge of that fabric. I'm going to needle down, go forward one, a back stitch, back to the beginning, make sure I haven't left any floppy edges. I'm going to go down, we have a pin box, and be sure to take out your pins as you go if they're in the way. All the way down. This pin is sideways. I can leave it in, or I can just sew across. All the way down. Stop in that little corner. Pick it up, turn. Make sure you have a little tiny bit of fabric, but not much showing. You don't want to be way off. It'll take up your space. Get to your corner, needle in, roll it in if you have to, and go one more stitch. All the way up. Back stitch. Alright. Cut off all my threads. Alright, now back to the table. Now, in one of the classes we did this at the very end, but I think it's more prudent to do this at the when you get finished with this piece. All right, first I'm gonna iron and get rid of all those blue marks. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to square the bottom. Alright, so if you can see it on this tote, you see how it's kind of got this cool little squaring process there at the very bottom. Okay, so what I'm going to do is this. Let me move my lining out of the way. Okay, alright, I'm going to use my ruler here, my sewing gauge, and I'm going to reach in my bag. Okay, and I'm going to see it's flat like this. And you can leave a flat tote. There's plenty of flat totes, but this is just adding a cool step. So I'm going to put my finger in there and I'm going to squish it down and make a triangle. Okay, so here's flat, turn it with the seam up and flatten it and make a triangle. Now from that top edge, now the higher up you go to square it, like if you do 2 or 3 inches, you're going to see less. You're going to see less of, see how I see a good bit of this? I only went up an inch. So you're going to see less on the front, the more on the bottom if you square it more. So for the little tote, I wouldn't do any more than like an inch or inch and a half. So I'm going to do it from the top of the seam that I can see right there. I'm going to put it 1 inch and I'm going to make a little mark. Okay. And then you can finish marking it if you want. Kind of just eyeball it there. And then I'm going to get a pin. And you could put a pin in before if you wanted to. But I'm going to put a pin just across that. Now, we need to make sure one more thing. I'm going to make sure, you see this seam right here? I'm going to put a pin right in that seam. And I want to make sure, I'm going to take that out real quick. I'm going to make sure that it's kind of going in that back seam, because that way you make sure your triangle is correct. Okay, so you know that it's centered and not like askew. So if not, your bag might be like twisted at the bottom. So put your pin in the seam and make sure you're getting that back seam as well, and then you can pin across or up and down. Alright, so we have that one right and ready. So now here's the other one. Put my hand in the bottom. Okay, now it's flat over here. I'm going to put this and I'm going to make a triangle. Okay, so let's go ahead and test it. So I'm going to put my pin in the seam and make sure it's getting that back seam. Alright, I've got that. So it's right through there. Alright, so now that I know that's right, I can kind of pin it wherever I want to. Alright, so 1 inch down from the top of the seam that I can see, draw a line, finish drawing your line, okay, so I'm going to take it back over to the sewing machine and sew these 2 lines. Alright, I'm going to tuck my thread into the back. I'm going to take my bag and put it down and make sure you're only sewing that triangle. Now I put my needle down and I make sure I back stitch way to the beginning and almost off really here, like a couple times, because you don't want there to be a little hole gap. So I'm going to go all the way across, back stitch, and then make sure you back stitch well on both ends. Cut off my thread, tuck it under. And you can cut this off if you want, but this is going to be on the inside and you're not really going to see it, but I'll show you what you can do to tuck. If you wanted to take it off, you can take it off and just cut it. I know it feels really weird. So that, and then you can turn it to a number 4 on mine is a regular zigzag stitch, and I'm going to make it 4.5 and 1.8, or you can just make it a large zigzag. You can see me again. Hit the camera. Alright, so I'm going to put this under here. And I'm going to zigzag one on, one off. It's similar to applique. You have done that before. And then I can get the beginning. I'm going to go back and hit the beginning. again, nobody's going to see this. This is on the inside. We're just finishing the edge so it won't come apart. You have added. Okay, so here's this. It's like a straight stitch and the zigzag on the edge, and you can really see it with the red. Again, this doesn't have to be pretty. Alright, so I'm going to go back to a stitch of a 1 and a 3. Triangle, make sure it's flat and I'm not sewing anything else. You get your pen and put it down. Move forward and back stitch a couple of times, forward and back. Make my triangle. As I did the other side, I'm going to go ahead and trim off and do a zigzag on this one. Trim it off a little bit. Don't trim it too close if you do this. Or you can leave little tabs. Again, nobody's going to see it. It's going to be inside the lining. Alright, we're going to go back over to the table now. Alright, we have squared the bottom. Look at that. Alright, I'm going to turn it outside so you can see what it looks like. Look at that. Isn't that cute? Alright, now for the other parts. Now this is the point where you can say, alright, my bag is too tall. I'm going to cut that off some. But I'm just going to leave it. Now this one's actually a little bit smaller than the other one. I trimmed it down on the side just a little bit. Alright, so what we're going to do now, I'm going to move all this stuff over. We're going to take our tab piece. And you're going to find the very center. I'm going to fold it in half. Okay. You can finger press it. You can iron it. And I found the center of my bag. So I'm going to put this right in the center. I'm going to pin it on. Alright, so here's our straps. Okay. So I'm going to trim off the ends. They're kind of a little uneven. So I'm just going to get my scissors and trim them up just a little bit. And here's where you can decide how long you want it. Okay, now I'm going to get the other one. Make sure it's the same size. Trim both of them up. Alright, so here's my straps. Now if you're making a larger bag and it's larger, much larger areas over here, you can measure from the side about 3 inches or so and then determine where you want your straps. So here's this one, and I used, instead of making my own on this, I used nylon webbing, and then you measure from the side where you want it and then make sure the back matches the front and where you want it. So you'll be pinning it on the same way, but this one's pretty you don't have much options. You have just a little space. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to pin these, and I decided with the edge with the little side showing just a little bit, that will be the inside, so when I pull it up so you can't see that side. So I'm going to put this down right beside it, just giving it like 1/4 of an inch or so, and I'm going to pin this here and here. Now, I don't want it to get twisted or turned diagonally, so I'm going to reach inside my bag and I'm going to pin it down here so it won't get twisted. I don't know if you can see that. So I pinned these two raw edges together. So my strap's going to go around and back up. Make sure it's not twisted, and put it in the same space as the other side. Just about 1/4 of an inch from each one. Okay. Make them straight, and then I'm going to pin another one down here so it won't get twisted. Now I'm going to flip it over to the back. Now here's the edge where you can see the back. Now I'm going to look over here and I can see where I have those. So I'm going to match that up so they're even. Pin a couple of pins. pin one further down so I can keep it straight and won't be diagonal. Okay, and then I'm going to make sure it's straight and wrap it around. Put that one where that one goes and see where the other one is and match those up. So when I look at them, you should see both of them matching up together. Two pins here and one here. Alright, so I'm going to set that aside just for a minute. Alright, so I have my lining pieces. I'm going to iron it real good. Now the lining is going to be just a little bit different. I'm not going to sew the U shape. I'm going to sew almost a U shape. So let's see if this white pen will work. If not, I'll use chalk. I'm just going to do a little 1/4 inch from the side, 1/2 inch from the side, sort of showing up. Let me use the chalk. Now I have this chalk of different colors. Here's the white. I'm going to put that right here. And we're just going to give it a little straight edge. And then the bottom. And then the other side. This one got a little poofy over here. Okay, get my chalk back. Alright, now it looks like the same kind of U that we did earlier, but we are going to leave an opening in the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to leave an opening right in the middle, because when we sew it all together in a minute, we'll need to have a way to pull everything through. Alright, so I make a start and stop, if you would will. Okay, so I have the pins where I've marked it, and so we're going to back stitch here at the top, back stitch, sew down, pivot the corner, stop right here, and back stitch. Then we'll start back right here, go to this corner, and back stitch back off. So I'm just going to pin a couple of pins in there. Alright, back to the sewing machine. Alright, I'm going to put this under. Now I'm using red thread. It's not really going to show because it's going to be on the inside of the lining even, so you won't even see this. So I'm going to put needle down and back stitch back to the beginning. And sew down. Corner, pick it up, pivot, and I'm going to go to that first pin and I'm going to back stitch. I go back and forth just one, and I'm going to take it out, tuck it under. Now I'm going to leave that spot open, and I'm going to start back at this line. Needle down, back stitch, pivot. Make sure you have a little fabric on the outside. And again, if you want to line it with put the interfacing on it, you can. Then take all these pins out. Okay. Put on the pins. I don't like leaving the pins on the table because they will get in the floor and I don't want to step on them. Alright, back to the table. Alright, so not back to the table. Laughing. Alright, now we have pinned the top and we have pinned the other side with the tab. Now we have this free arm on the machine. I'm going to take this off so I can better get to my project. Now this is almost too small to fit over it, but it does fit over it. Right, So I'm going to start at a seam and put my pressure foot right on the edge with a little tiny bit of fabric, but it's right on the edge. So I'm going to roll it in, and put your needle down, back stitch. We're going to sew all the way around, really close to the edge. This is a basting stitch. It won't show at the end, but this will, you know, our pins will keep everything straight. So we're just going to sew it all on, just real close to the edge. Make sure, and then I kind of reach under here and just kind of pull it around. I'm not even taking the pins out. Just kind of keep rolling it around. Now this one's a little bit further down than I actually want it to be. So I'm actually going to take out those pins. And that's where it was going to be. Taking out all my pins. All the way back around, I'm going to back stitch. Pick it up. I've got threads where I started, threads when I finished. Don't cut them off short. And I have my bag now. Alright, last part. Here's our lining piece. Cut off any threads. Move them out of the way. Alright, so this is the wrong side of our lining because you see our seams. That would be the right side, so it's all pretty. This is the right side of our bag. So I'm going to take my bag and I'm going to squish it up. It's all squished up. And I'm going to take the right side and I'm going to stick that inside that lining. Just kind of poof it on in there. Let me take some jiggling around. Just kind of just putting it in there. Alright, you want to make sure your straps are going in. You make sure your tab is going in. All of that. Now, you're going to take this seam of the black, the side seam, and the side seam of your bag. Let's find it. There it is right there. And I'm going to match those up. Don't worry about the rest of the craziness. Just match those two seams up. You can open them up or you can lay one this way to the left and then this one to the inside. But you just want to make sure that those match up. Okay? I'm going to take a pin and put a pin in that seam. I'm going to flip it around to the other side and there's the bag seam. And there. Alright. And there's the black lining seam. I'm going to put those together, line them up, put a pin. Now you can work your way around pinning the top. Raw sides together. Alright. Go around to the other side. Now you want to look in there occasionally and make sure your straps are not like totally twisted. You want to make sure that they're going up and down. Matching those at the top. There's that one. Okay, here's where our tab is. Put a pin right there. And then there's our other strap. It's straight. Put a tab in, pin in that. Alright, now you should have a hole in the middle. Okay. Alright, and then we're going to put that on the sewing machine and sew around that. Alright, back to our machine. Slide that over it. Now here I'm going to sew a little bit further down. There's a number 2 right there on your machine or a line. You pick one. You need to go down a little bit further. I'm going probably 3/4 of an inch. Maybe an inch, but keep it consistent. Alright, so I'm going to keep my hand kind of under here. The free arm is still off. I'm going to back stitch right here, back stitch. I'm going to keep it right on the line that has a little 2 on it. Keep pulling it around if it gets stuck. This is a little bag. Bigger bags are a little bit easier, but you want to make sure underneath here that your bag is straight. Go a little ways, pull it around, and then make sure it's straight underneath there, and I'm getting all the parts. threads, tuck it back under. Ooh, I ran out of bobbin, but I got back all the way around. Occasionally check your bobbin, but I got all the way around, and then that was the last little piece. Now I have to run another one, and then I'll show you what to do. Alright, so we've sewn all the way around the top. You should have this little opening in the center and a hole in the bottom. Alright, if this is really raggedy at the top and different sizes, you can trim it off if you want to. You don't have to. This is going to be on the inside, but I'm just going to make it a little even. Don't get too close to anything, any seam that you made. Alright, let me pull all that out of the way. Now, this is the fun part. You're going to reach in the bottom. And pull it all the way out. Here's your bottom. Okay? Now, one more thing we have to do. Now, we're going to sew that closed in just a minute. And you could have done this before, but look what we're going to do. We've got our other magnetic snap, right? So we're going to take this, and we're going to top stitch that in a minute. But we're going to fold this over and see where we want it. Okay, here's our straps. This looks cute. And we're going to push this down, and we find where we want it. And once we find where we want it, and you can fold it in half and do the center, I'm going to make a little blue dot or white dot so I can see my little blue dot just barely. And there's the back. I'm going to push this down, find those little sides and those little marks there. Now what I want to do, alright, there's a hole in your little here, and there's our little lines. So I'm going to fold these because you do not want to get your lining, and I'm going to make 2 baby clips, and I'm going to take my little back and put it through those holes, and then I'm going to reach through to my lining. Hold on, I got wadded up. Find that, and there's your little piece. I'm going to put that on. You can do it before you put the lining in there. Sometimes I find it's nice to put it on the after, because then you can find exactly the center. Push it down with the table. Alright, and there's your outside piece. And it feels like you can see exactly where it's going to be. Alright, so I'm going to take this, and here's our lining piece and the bottom piece where we had the hole. Now you can get black thread, but I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to do red all the way across, because you could do, there's your opening, you could sew just right there, but I'm just going to top stitch from one end to the other. Alright, now I can put my free line back on, and then I'm going to take my lining piece, and I'm going to put it right down the edge and put my needle in, go forward, back stitch. Now you can pin this if you want to, but you can kind of see where it is. And I'm going to sew really close to the edge, all the way across, get to the end, back stitch. And again, if you want to use the color of the fabric, it'll blend right in. Cut it off, and then there's my stitch all the way across. I'm going to tuck my lining in. I'll show you over here at the table. Alright. So I've sewn all the way across, so I'm going to tuck it in. We're almost done. Last stitch. And isn't that the cutest? Fold those back, get everything out of the way. And I'm kind of going to iron that lining into it. You can flip it sideways. And if you don't have an iron nearby, you can actually just fold it down and pin it. Okay. Just keep pushing this down. Make sure the lining's inside. All the way around. And now we're going to go and top stitch this. Make sure the lining doesn't come out. So now you can wash this whole thing and it won't come apart. The lining won't come out. Alright, our last stitch. Now, I'm going to take the 4-yard back off again. Take the threads under to the back. And we've got these crazy straps now. So I'm going to put this, start at a seam, open it up. I'm going to put the needle down. Press your foot down, needle down. Now I'm pulling the strap out of the way, so I'm just going to go just a little ways. Top stitching near the top. Now if the lining starts poking out, just tuck it back under. Make sure it's smooth under there. Pull the strap straight. Okay, I'm going to tuck the lining under. Take the lining under, pull it straight. Keep pulling it around. If it shows a little bit, again, don't be hard on yourself. Pull that straight, pull the strap straight. Pull the strap out of the way. You don't want to accidentally sew it into the bag. Pulling it around. There's where we started. I'll go ahead and get my scissors and cut that thread off, and then the one on the back off. And you go back into that same stitch and back stitch. Needle up, press your foot up, cut off your threads, and you are finished. Let's go back over here and take a look. All right. Here's our cute little tote. Two-toned tote. Again, there's all different ways you can do it. There's our little piece there. We've done your magnetic snap, your straps. This is the other one I'd made. Aren't those cute? So I'd love to see your photos of what you've done, and if you have any questions about the tote, and you can make it all different